Les pido su atención. Muchas gracias. Gracias a todos por estar aquí en esta charla organizada por Facultad de Arquitectura y Arte de Universidad del Desarrollo. Voy a hacer una presentación muy corta en español, pero sobre todo en inglés en razón de nuestros invitados. Entonces, agradecer a todos los que han colaborado con esta presentación y con las actividades que va a tener Dagur Egerton, Nick Coates y Viveke Jensen en el día de hoy, en esta charla y en lo que sigue en la tarde, que está montado en las salas E, que están todos invitados también a acercarse y participar a partir de las 3 de la tarde. So, good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to have here today with us to Dagur Egerton, Nick Coates, and Viveke Jensen. So, welcome. And they are part of the team of Rintala Egerton architects from Norway and other countries that Dagur are going to explain later in his presentation. And I'm sure we will enjoy your lecture very much. So I would like to thank you for sharing your time today with us, with our students, our faculty, our school. And a few words. I believe that Norway and Chile have a lot in common. Both are lands of great natural beauty that we as architects must confront daily and almost at each project. This condition demands us a deep understanding of what we do as architects. Rintala Egerton have developed an architecture that touches in a subtle way each element of nature with a work that is worth watching carefully, since it is relevant also for our territory in Chile. We share with Nordic countries a common rural history, a feeling for a way of living closer to natural elements that can be related with the more primitive attitudes towards materials, placement, and scale, an architecture that can at the same time be part of our own period in history. We are both regions distant from what historically has been understood as cultural centers. I just want to mention that back in 2017, I recall sharing a video of Sami Rintala with the students on a workshop that we did in Easter Island. So this is how far the influence of Rintala Egerton have reached around the world. And I think that the work that you do and the lecture and the position towards architecture follows in a very interesting and precise way what Kenneth Frampton defined as a new sense of our historical time. I think it was back in a lecture from 2012. So having said that, I want to thank you and please give Dagur and his team a welcome to our school with a warm applause.
I should probably take one of those.
Yep.
Or maybe my voice is loud enough to bear towards the back of the room. Maybe that's easy. Okay. We need for the streaming. Okay.
Streaming. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Hello. Okay, let's try this. Okay. Your voice sounds always so artificial when it goes through this system. Anyway, I am Dagur Egerton, and we have been traveling now almost a week in Chile. And yesterday we met some wonderful craftsmen in Chimbarongo, where we are going to make some work together with them. And we were treated so well that it was actually a bit hard to wake up this morning. But it only means that we are longing to come back again. So we could have the first slide on the screen. I just wanted to explain a little bit how we the origin of the office, because we are from different countries in Scandinavia. I am from Iceland. Vibeke is from Norway. Our partner Sami Rintala is from Finland. Nick is from the US, and we have people working from other countries, Netherlands and Japan. So we are different cultures, and we really value the cultural differences. Scandinavian cultures are not that different from one to the other. It's maybe a bit similar to kind of the South American kind of coexistence of different cultures in this region as well. But we like to kind of treasure that kind of those slight differences between the cultures, because they only kind of vitalize our discussions very strongly in the yes, thanks, and back. I think let's go back to here. The kind of the whole thing started, I guess, with the kind of in '86 when I went to decided to study architecture, and there was no education of architecture in Iceland at all. So I had to travel to other countries, and I chose Norway, where I met Vibeke, and few years later, we traveled together to study for our master's degree in Finland, Helsinki, where we met Sami Rintala. And a few years after that, Sami Rintala moves to Norway, where we had moved back and settled. And after a couple of years playing football together and drinking beer and having kind of nice times together, solving all the problems in the world, of course, we decided to start the office, and so Vibeke joined us 1 year later, and we have been kind of running the office since then. Sami moved. There's an explanation for this last arrow, because Sami moved to make it more complicated. He moved to north of Norway, but in these times of with internet, it is not a huge problem. So we decided to try it, and it has worked remarkably well. Our time in Helsinki was quite defining for us, because our professor Juhani Palasmaa was emphasizing in his master's program the need to design and build. Making a decision about architecture has always consequences, and one of the consequences is that somebody has to put the item or these forms together physically and make them a reality out there in rain, in all kinds of weather. And that's what they pushed us to do. We were kind of thrown into the studios to cast and mill and weld things together and see and experiment with these things, get to know these processes by heart, because they only enrich your creativity. It's also a fact that architecture doesn't just come directly out of the kind of building warehouse or architecture isn't kind of a product of off-the-shelf solutions. You have to stand for a lot of the decisions how to make things, and one important aspect is the crafting of the architecture. So we have always had craft as a part of our architectural history. Our heritage lies very much in the crafting, and we must not forget that. We have to take care of the crafts because they are slowly disappearing from the surface of the earth. We are losing the crafts one by one, and we see it in Norway, and you're probably seeing it here in Chile as well, that there are fewer of those who are doing this kind of special kind of making things in whatever material there is, and that is we are losing our culture with that. With the craft comes the language of the material, and we saw it very clearly yesterday in Chimbarongo when we were working with craftsmen that they had the language of the material really in their fingertips. It was in their body. They knew how to kind of make things kind of with their eyes closed. Even they knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it fast and extremely well, and they were speaking to each other and looking everywhere else in the space. So this language of the material is very comparable to our spoken languages, and we are, as a reference, we are losing one language in the world per month, and they are predicting that by the end of the century we will lose 1,500 languages in the world, which is quite a lot, because we have, I think it's 6,800 known languages in the world. So it's quite dramatic situation we are facing there. So we have to together take care of what we have. So all these immaterial things are as important as the material aspects of what we do. So it affects really much the sustainability issue. And sorry to bring up this very worn out theme, sustainability, but it's always important to remind ourselves that sustainability is consisting not only of ecological and economical sustainability, but also the socio-cultural aspect, which is our culture of making things, culture of crafting, and culture of architecture. I will show you 7 projects. I think they grew to 8 actually last minute. So let's see how many they are in the end. I will, and they have been selected a bit on the basis of why we are here, because Domingo asked us to do whatever wild things we wanted to do. So there were no restrictions, and we have been lucky to have several of those assignments that we are kind of thrown into a context and having to kind of on one hand invent our context, but also to how do you say, research and find substance in what we can find on the internet, but also visiting places like we did this time in Chimbarongo. So the first one is the Höse Bridge. Höse Bridge is a part of a so-called tourist tourist route projects in Norway. The government decided to assign a lot of money into infrastructure and architecture projects to merge them together. On one hand, to attract people to visit interesting places, but also from the other side to give the people traveling around Norway a good reason to take a break, because it's good for you and safety for the driver is very important. Our project is in Sand municipality, Suldal municipality, and the town Sand, which is a really small town on the west coast of Norway, close to, not far away from Stavanger, if anybody knows some geography from Norway, south of Bergen, quite far into those west coast fjords. And the assignment was to make a pedestrian bridge to cross over to a very big natural area, a recreational area, but it was kind of fenced off by a very big river. One of the biggest rivers in Norway is flowing through there, Salmon River, and a lot of tourism coming there to actually see the salmon kind of swim up the river. And even if you go there, they allow you to kind of wear these dry suits and swim with the salmon. So I haven't tried it, but you should. So the bridge was a kind of connector, and with the beauty of the nature there, it's hard to kind of make things to copy things and or kind of imitate it. It's so we decided to go the opposite way to make a contrast to all these beautiful natural forms of the bedrock, and instead try to align with the colors of the landscape. We did the bridge in, it was a steel lattice structure, and we clad it with cotton steel and stainless steel stretch metal. So you see some of that materiality. The bridge is more or less open until the middle of the river. As you see, we cover it with cotton steel panels in the middle, and that was in order to emphasize the sound of the river once you're passing over. A bit similar to Chinese and Japanese lounge bridges, which are covered, have the roof over the whole river. But there's always something that marks the kind of transition from one side to the other. So this was our kind of introduction to a transition for the pedestrians. They would have to kind of cross over this, cross over the river with this kind of fearful side of the powerful river in the under your feet. But also the sound is quite strong, but once you get to the other side, there is a pavilion, and our idea was that not only is the natural area a good kind of, or the bridge, or a kind of our intervention, a good starting point for a long hike in the area, or a jog or whatever. The bridge itself should be a destination in itself, and by definition it was kind of a destination, although we had to fight a bit with the road authorities about including it in the design. they always wanted to cut the costs, and but in the end, we made a deal with the contractor who was really interested in getting having the pavilion there, because he was also a local politician and he really knew what people in the area were wishing and dreaming about. So the deal was, if there is no kind of report of mistakes in the production and design process until we are halfway done with the project, we can talk with the client and explain that there are funds reserves in the project that can allow you to make the pavilion. So we're happy that the contractor kind of pulled it through, and it came out quite nicely, and it is already a very popular destination for small kids and for the elderly who can't take the full trip around the landscape. So next project is also completed in 2013, as the bridge was. It's the Cellular Watchtower. The Cellular Watchtower was an interesting project for us because it was also a project where it was actually an art project, but it was interesting for us because they wanted us to make a watch kind of lookout point where you would be looking out for things that you would probably never see. I will explain further. Because in this lake that is next to the tower is a sea monster, a serpent that swims in the lake that almost nobody sees, but there are hundreds of reports of people seeing something mystical. It's like a Loch Ness of Norway. And the curators wanted us to make a tower or a lookout point that would kind of enable people to see the monster better. An interesting take, because it was a kind of they were using the tales and the myths of the landscape and to make architectural projects or mostly art projects in this case. To enrich the area with, so that you would be able to get closer to those myths. But there are some funny YouTube videos from that tower that show something in the lake, and so you have to check them out. The idea with the project was to create a kind of a boundary between what is kind of real and what is unreal on the other side within the lake. So we kind of created a long walk down to the lake and then set the edge of kind of where is your history and where do the myths take over, and so this is the kind of line that divided the walk, your kind of travel towards the lake, towards the myth, and on one side there was a small, we had a small hut for information, and then the tower on the other side, plus the two beautiful pines that were defining the area very strongly, that we decided to frame in this subtle way. And this is what it looks from a distance. There's a very big bird hacking area on the one side, and and the two pines on the other side. So the structure is constructed of wooden glulam boxes or kind of frames that are stacked on top of each other. And in addition, there are 3 additional boxes that are hung on the outside of the tower. The lowest ones are for resting while walking up the staircase on the inside, and the one on top is for the viewpoint itself. And the cladding is set at 45 degrees, so you can actually you can ventilate the wood in a proper way, but you can also see through the skin. And it's set at an angle that is also preventing the view towards less interesting features of the landscape, like a big camping ground there. So it's kind of really concentrating the view towards the landscape. And this is your meeting with the sea serpent presumably is taking place. And like in the bridge project, we worked with a light design company to light the tower and make it become an attraction in itself at nighttime. Pressbad bus stop is a project that has several resemblances to the other projects that we were be invited by a small municipality in Austria to do a bus stop, which is a very ordinary task in itself, but the kind of the freedom we were given was kind of pushing us into ourselves in a way. What kind of bus stop would you do, and why would you do it differently from any other ordinary bus stops? And they had also invited several other architects, and you might recognize a few of them. Ensemble Studio is a part of the Chimbarongo, or the Ruta Pais project, which we are now working on here in Chile. And Smiljan Radic was also a part of this project. So we were given the possibility to select a site, and we chose this site, which was next to a tennis court. As a starting point to kind of try to do something more out of the bus stop. So the proposal was kind of a dual function which would serve not only the bus stop itself, but also allow visitors to the tennis court to have a good view over the court or the field. So a kind of a Siamese twin, which was kind of one part of the body facing the road and the other part facing the backside. And so you would have a view, good kind of audience situation up there. These are two basic sections through the tower, through the building. Very everything was very sustainable. The material was from this area. The carpenter was had the workshop more or less over the street, 200 meters down the street on the other side. And there were volunteers to do all kinds of things in the project. And the local brass band was for instance, doing all the wooden shingles as a volunteer work. So it came together and became a very popular hangout for young people to just sit and not be seen from the road and just hang out there. Even the cats in the area, they made some patterns in the concrete. So many different contributions. Dark stained wood on the inside and natural wood shingles on the outside. And now the wood shingles have turned gray. The dark color was mainly chosen because we wanted to emphasize the kind of view and the colors and on the outside, because the black background helps to kind of contrast all those colors coming in. Dragonfly is a project we did a few years ago in Harads, north of Sweden, for an organization called Tree Hotel. They started already in 2008, I think, to make hotel rooms in the trees, so tree houses, basically. This was completed in 2013 as well. And this is a very common sight in this area. Very few cars, so that the reindeer can just kind of just pass over the road anywhere, and they particularly like the road because they put salt on the road, so you have to be very careful when you drive the roads up there, because they're licking the road. The Tree Hotel, the Dragonfly, was the biggest hotel room that they had constructed at that time. They wanted to have a kind of more rooms, not only one sleeping space, but up to 3 sleeping spaces. So it started with a kind of main area, and we decided to, because we had to rely on quite many trees to support it, to let the hotel rooms shoot out from the main space to the sides, to be able to kind of make use of the space in between the trees, like you see here. And instead of having the structure at the bottom, like you usually do, we had it kind of above the building, and so the building is actually hanging from the structure. So this is the main space with the entrance area and dining area at the end, and the sleeping rooms shooting to the sides. And they decided to reduce by 1 room and create a bigger social area as well. And this is a kind of typical view in the winter time when you wake up. Yeah, so light is also very important there, and the connection with the natural landscape. We brought also a project with us that's called In Praise of Shadows. You know the book, but this was about a little bit about the same things as you know from the book, that yeah, we are very dependent on daylight in architecture, and we have a tendency to kind of overexpose everything with artificial light. in this project, we were invited to do a writer's cabin. It was a big competition that was initiated by a literature institute in Switzerland, close to Lausanne. And they wanted to make multiple residencies outside of an already existing building which houses the institute. The director of this institute was really inspired by the tree hotel project that I showed you earlier. She wanted to do also use the woods around Montrichet for doing this residency, but she wasn't allowed. There was too many Swiss restrictions there, so vibrations in the trees were kind of beyond the limit, and so she had to find something different solutions. So she actually asked the architect of the institute to make a huge canopy out of concrete and with columns that would resemble a natural wood. So so the idea was to the same more or less as in the tree hotel, to lift people off the ground and kind of in the air and create a special atmosphere for the writers. And this is the final outcome. They selected 7 winners of the competition. At this point, the 7th winner wasn't there yet, but that was Alejandro Aravena and Elemental. They did a project that also won, but they were kind of taken out because it was at that point not possible to realize the project, but they were later given another site where they turned the project into a common dining area for all the residents of the institute. So the idea was to use the light as an important ingredient in the project, and to make use the staircase as a kind of binding element in the whole thing, and the different functions would kind of be attached to the staircase from different sides, and you would get daylight from different directions into the tower. You would start with more earthly functions, the toilet at the bottom, then the eating area, then the living room, and with a sleeping alcove, and then at the top a writer's space. And this is the closer look from on the left side of the view of the facade facing the mountains, and 2 sections, 1 section and an elevation from the competition project. And on the other side, facing the inside, the entrance or the institute, the big bathroom window, and the staircase itself was hung from the top, so the building was hung from the ceiling, and the staircase was hung from the top of the building. And all the infrastructure was connected with the staircase, so also to prevent rotation of the cabin, they made a flexible joint there, and and allowed all the plumbing and all the electricity to go through that connection. And here the bathroom, kitchen, dining area, and the sleeping alcove, and the writer's room. Pictures taken very soon after the finishing, so very unfurbished, and the view towards the lake. Corte del Forte was a project we did for the 2018 Biennale di Venezia. It was a special project that the curators had initiated to connect better with the population of Venice. The Biennale is a huge thing, of course, and it generates a lot of income, of course, for the locals. But it's a kind of a planet within the planet. It is there is no interaction, more or less, with the local people. So they wanted to develop this area. It's a former military area that has become a social area for the Venetians on the mainland. And there are two very popular dance festivals in Venice every year, and they assigned us to do a dance pavilion. We also got the chance to work with this incredible group of carpenters, which is a group of actually activists to start with. They started as kind of opponents of the cruise traffic into the Venetian lagoon, and they expanded to kind of act with their activism to criticize the Italian immigration policies. So they started recycling material from the biennales and started training people as carpenters to construct social housing and arenas for activities for and with the immigrants. And they had recently become licensed as contractors in Italy. So we were very happy that we could work with them. We were not allowed to work there. Otherwise, we would have come there with our own team and constructed things. But this was a very nice collaboration. Here's a quick view of our kind of a render of where we decided to locate ourselves. And after fighting with the Heritage Foundation, we landed on this particular spot with this particular amount of millimeters away from everything around. And here are some pictures of the process and the final outcome. The project is a dance pavilion, as I said, with an inner courtyard for smaller activities, like kind of a small cultural activities. So it was kind of open program, even though it was called a dance pavilion. It was also people could lend it for all kinds of activities, and we were getting so many beautiful pictures of people getting married in the pavilion, and so it was really used for many different functions, not functions, but activities. And the stage could also be facing the outside, and we had to do special legs because we weren't allowed to dig into the ground because of antiquities possibly resting in the under the surface. and here from the inside space. We had to make a cover for a kind of solar cover, and we have a very good weaver in our office. Vibeke is an excellent weaver, so she designed this beautiful roof out of industrial material that is used, that is absolutely water resistant, and but created these amazing patterns. And then solar screens and seating. And somebody getting ready for some dancing. I'm getting closer. If somebody is getting tired of this, we are getting towards the end. Tensifumeter is a strange word. We were working, this is a project we completed in 2021 in Larvik, south of Oslo. A project we were assigned to do by curators, art curators in Larvik, together with this gentleman. Chris Bold is an artist who had moved from Scotland in the 60s, and living in this municipality ever since, and been in many ways opposition to a lot of things. So you could call him a kind of an anarchist or a protester, especially when it comes to cultural policies. But one of his special things was recycling. He was recycling things for his installations, and he was also working very site specifically. He was finding places all over the municipality that were partly inaccessible, but amazing, beautiful places. You would just have to kind of crawl under a fence, or people were often trespassing, and so he became very unpopular. But he kind of opened up things, opened up the eyes of people, and how important it is to anchor your kind of discussions about or understanding of could say kind of urban issues, but also architecture, how it kind of originates from special from the context in a way. So we were kind of working. Our task was kind of to comment a bit on his life and his opposition. So we did this 4 buildings that were scattered around a park area that he used to work quite a lot in. And they were positioned on different spots that were doing precisely what he used to do, to kind of highlight kind of qualities within an area. And they would be facing the right way, the upside down and on the side. So the houses, the kind of archetypal houses, were kind of the symbol of the society that he was so in so much opposition to, and then kind of tilting them in different directions was a way to show that he had a problematic relationship with the establishment. Just a quick view of some foundation work and the detailing that we decided to go for, and very simple kind of 3-way wood joints. So we were planning to do without any screws, but in the end we had to use screws to get it certified, and some modified construction details to carry the upside down building. And then we had the chance to work with a fantastic carpenter that we will never let go of, because it just is a great extension to the way we are thinking, and you guys who will be becoming architects will always find a special carpenter or somebody who kind of becomes the person that really makes things you are doing possible. This is the upside down house, which turned into a nice little hangout, and one of the houses on the side facing the fjord. And on the hilltop there was this tilted house that was containing a lot of driftwood that we sourced from the shore and the nearby river. Yeah, and it has become a nice hangout for youngsters. But the idea to use this park was partly because there are lots of not necessarily homeless people, but people that have kind of social issues, and this was to give more space for everybody. Basically, they were kind of occupying the park with the only bench in the park. This was adding so many more places into the park that everybody could come there and hang out. So it has kind of opened up very many things in the park. And this is the only house that was facing the normal way. We did these operable doors that would flip open, and this is showing how it can be used. I brought this with me to show in Chimbarongo, because they had been working with a special school with children with special needs, because our point being that it is so important to make things, and I think it has a really good connection with what we were seeing before the lecture out on the grassy area here, that just making things and allowing things to happen is so important. So this is an outdoor classroom on this picture. We were asked in an extension to the project to do educational project for 13-year-old kids, 7th graders, where all the 7th graders in the municipality, 600 of them were invited to come in different groups. They got 2 hours with us, and we made next to or almost 600 architectural models. So here's some pictures from the production, and it was just a kind of fantastic celebration of kind of possibilities in architecture. Maybe you could hit the play button there. Just a small video, and it was just a kind of from the video celebration of okay possibilities in architecture. Okay, yeah. Now you got to hear a loop. So this we had an exhibition last week, and with all 590 of these models, and made a huge city, and it was just unbelievably beautiful, and so much creativity kind of kind of booming from 2-hour sessions with 7th graders. So maybe you can take the last. Just wanted to show you some images from our project in Chimbarongo, our last project. So you can soon go and have a lunch break. Next week, please. Oh, I can probably do it here. Yeah, we started in 2020 with the project. And like in many of the other projects, as I said, kind of total freedom. But then again, you know, there's always something to that freedom. There's never complete freedom, because there is always something on the side, something with the building material, something that you have to take into consideration. The Chimbarongo is next to the reservoir, old convent reservoir, and our site was very close to the waterfront. We spent a lot of time kind of studying the properties of wicker, and usually we work with the materials in some kind of constructive way, because it's often through the kind of constructive capabilities that you kind of see possibilities or kind of see the kind of magic of the material. In this case, we had to think very differently, because wicker cannot carry so many things. It is wood, of course, but it is very thin wood, and it has much more kind of stretching, or kind of resistance or stretching, and it's quite weak when it comes to the breaking point. So we had to think very differently. We spent a lot of time doing kind of studies of infrastructure, and also the history of the reservoir. And in the end, it became very clear to us that the water is really the binding factor in the whole thing, that not only wicker, but maybe more the water itself, because not only is it present, very present in the on the side, but also very central for growing wicker. You need water to make it kind of make the harvest and create the crops. And we saw it 2 days ago or yesterday actually, when we went to see the fields, that some years there has been only just a fraction of what they planted that has yielded any crops. But for us, it was kind of this also this geopolitical thing with the water that was very interesting, because with this reservoir that came in 1972, I think the first version of the dam came in 1972. There were so many people that had to move away from their homes. There was a town called Old Convent, Convento Viejo, that was submerged. We didn't know what it looked like. We haven't been able to find any drawings or anything, but we were drawn towards the idea of the cloister and what kind of the archetype of the cloister and the connection kind of between that it represents between the sky and earth, that it is the most sacred place in the monastery and the convent. And it is and the central part of the cloister is the garden, where they used to grow things, and still do, and there's often a well, so a water source also there. So this was kind of to honor those who had to abandon their homes, and to the history of the area that is now hidden under the surface of the lake. We did two proposals that we are still playing around with. Both of them have the water in the center, and the walkway around the water. And in this case, the wicker is turned into a mass of furniture slash non-load-bearing walls with seating in niches around the edge, and openings that would kind of create connections, visual connections to features in the landscape. And this is to show images of the installation from the road, and a section that showing the roof collecting water, the water pond, the water mirror in the center, and the furniture around the edges. And from the inside. And from the side of the lake. This is the second alternative, which we are also working on. We'll probably at some point merge these two ideas into one, and but this is this has the water pond, the water mirror in the center, the walkway where you can walk around it. It is the excess water is running over the edge into the landscape, and a way to pass into the space, and niches, more generous niches with non-load-bearing wicker walls that are shaping both light situation inside and creating the atmosphere inside the pavilion. And this is from the road, and a similar section with water mirror and wicker walls, and this and this from the inside, and from the lake. So I think this is it. Thank you.
Very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Tegur. It was really nice to see all the projects, and I would like to quisiera invitarlos a hacer preguntas o comentarios sobre la presentación. Tenemos un tiempito más para hacerlo. Si alguno, if anyone has some questions or comments about the... Sí.
Hi, first of all, your work is stunning. And second, I would like to ask how you address universal accessibility in your projects, because when I see the projects, they're beautiful, but then I see someone in a wheelchair or impaired view, and I think it's almost impossible for them to like live the project. That's it.
Thank you. It is actually something we work very hard with. Now I have to kind of rewind a bit with these installations. Like the Venice Biennale project was one of the most important things to allow disabled into the installation. The tower, the cellular tower, is an example of where that was quite complicated, because making a tower for access with access for disabled is requiring an elevator, and but there was a kind of discussion about it all the time, because it is it was one of the things that were kind of a part of the program to take people up to kind of a certain viewpoint, a certain height above the water, and so it was unfortunately not possible there. But you're right, it is really important to address those issues in architecture, and we do everything we can to make that possible. Some of those places out in nature are associated with some compromises, and the cellular tower is one of them. And the understanding we had from the kind of contact group we had, or the municipality had established a contact group with the association of people with physical impair. The compromise was to kind of allow everybody to the lake, which was already a big improvement for them. But Vibeke told me about a video that was published on YouTube last week, where there was a person in wheelchair that went up the tower in a wheelchair, actually. So it was it's kind of astonishing and surprising, and so and I'm not saying that that we shouldn't think about these things, but there are people that are really crossing the border of possible, or kind of the limits that the physical impair imposes.
Thank you. Anything else?
Hi, thank you for the inspiring lecture. I know you had the chance for the pandemic, instead of all of us, when we were locking down, to go to the mountains and work among the nature with all your studio. Did those two projects take place in the end, the cabin and the sauna? And how was your experience of slowing down in the mountains instead of locking down?
Sorry, what was the first question?
The first one is, how was your experience that meanwhile all the world was locking down in their houses, you had the chance to go to the mountains and withdraw over there? Yeah. And the second, you were working over there in two projects, the sauna and a small cabin. Did those two projects finally took place because you didn't show them?
Yeah, this one was completed before. So the one in the background, it's from completed in 2017, 18. It's actually something that is still ongoing, because the client is wanting more and more, and so there are kind of ongoing workshops taking place on that island. Yes, we could have been really unlucky with the pandemic, because many of the projects are really small and not a lot of economy in them. But we had a contract to build a sauna and a jump or a diving tower in a small municipality south of Oslo. So we it was an art project, and we were basically the contractors in the project. So we could have assigned other to do the construction work, which we probably would have, but we decided to do everything ourselves. So we did everything from foundations to finishing the doors. It was in a period where Nick had just started the office. I think he was quite shocked. So you could comment a bit.
So it was a bit surreal in some moments, because for that project, for example, we were commuting daily to the site by car, because we had to kind of be in a closed bubble. We couldn't take public transportation. And when we were inside Oslo, it was more or less a lockdown. Everything was closed. We could still freely go outside and hike and things like that, but life was not what it was. But we could channel kind of all this free time and all of the ideas we had to this place that was about an hour away. So we would get up, drive there every day, and then kind of just be our bubble of 4 people on the site, not really interacting with anyone in any other way except for the work. And I think it was quite lucky in many ways to have this pandemic experience. But what was interesting about it is it allowed us to kind of channel so much through the physical making, and kind of maybe, especially when there were a lot of like repetitive tasks, like building the walls and cladding them, your mind wanders a bit, and you were thinking a lot about like, what is this kind of situation in the world, and how can architecture and what we're doing be a way to kind of come out of it, or what will it be like when we come out of it as well. So a unique experience, and lucky in some ways, but of course, yeah, challenging.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your lecture and the insights on these 8 projects you showed us. Particularly the last one, it's quite touching to see how Domingo's initiative is moving forward, and we're looking forward to those pavilions to be built in Chile. And this is not your first time in Chile. I remember 2011 with the Meta initiative in the Biobío region after the earthquake that we had the chance to meet you. Yeah. Unfortunately, those pavilions never got built, but I hope these ones will, and we'll do our best to help on that. My question goes to an issue of scale. It seems that you have managed to choose, or maybe just by chance, focus most of your practice in small scale buildings that merge the relation between furniture, architecture, cabinetry. And the biggest project that I've seen, maybe I'm wrong, it's the museum of the one that covers this ancient ship, that it's still a work that is very related with the content and how to protect and take care of it. Is there something, are you guys reluctant to really move into bigger or more complex commissions or buildings? Is there a scale where you lose the control over the craftsmanship and this synthesis of matter, tectonics, and design? Or is there a bigger building that you haven't shown yet?
I think we have always been trying to kind of break the glass roof in a way, because European procurement regulations are really, really hard to deal with, because you have to show examples of similar buildings, similar scale, similar functions when you apply for pre-qualifications. Open competitions are different, but they have kind of grown in scale and become quite inaccessible for smaller offices. So it's really a system that helps larger offices to survive. So we have tried to get into some larger projects, and we're just signing a contract about a building similar in scale to the museum that you mentioned. So we are kind of feel that we are kind of on the threshold of getting into something slightly bigger. But we get this question quite often because we are very associated with these small scale things, and we feel very comfortable in that scale. I kind of in many ways, because I think it allows us to get in a very close relationship with the clients. And one other reason for being in that scale is that we are able to construct these things ourselves without any without being licensed as carpenters. We can. It's up to we can construct buildings up to 50 square meters according to Norwegian law, up to so and so high above the ground. So there are these restrictions, but also this idea of building is something we can kind of the idea of the architect as a kind of in between function between the client and the constructor is something that has created a divide, in our opinion, between society and as a profession. We are often seen as a profession that makes things too complicated and makes things too expensive. Also, reducing the kind of people's desire to use us as professional in building projects. So I think that this kind of the idea of building has changed over the last couple of 100 years, because if you want to fix your home in a way, you have to apply to the Heritage Office or apply for grants, and there's so much paperwork that makes it literally impossible. So building has become much less democratic. Basically, we have tried with our workshops to show people that we can facilitate and make things possible, and so we have worked very closely with many of our clients in kind of designing and building things without complicating things too much. So and try to make our profession stand out as something closer to the people.
Thank you so much. We will have one more question, and we're running out of time, so we need to finish.
Yes, I'll be brief. Thank you very much for the presentation. The projects are all very inspiring. I am a teacher, second year architecture workshop, Taller Arquitectónico, and we're working very close to Santiago, to the north in the Aconcagua Valley, all from the Andes Mountains to the beach. So our students are scattered along the valley. And the topic that is common to all the projects that they're doing for their final presentation is water and the scarcity of water and this big thing that is happening and we hardly know about it. And I see that in all your projects, water or snow in this picture is part of it. So maybe if you can have a message for my students, I'd be very thankful.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Where should we start? I think it's fantastic that you're actually working with water, and we have always felt that the elements are something we are carrying inside of ourselves, and have a very strong relationship, therefore, with the environment through some kind of basic features, water being one of them, fire, air, light. All these basic elements are something that has kind of unified us as human beings since we were living in caves, basically. And water is one of those really vital elements that we need it for our daily routines, but also it's a wonderful kind of recreational thing, and we see it in so many different versions in the Scandinavian countries, in the Nordic countries. It comes hot from the ground here in Chile and in Iceland, so shooting in the air, but also cascading from the icebergs and the fjords that are kind of cutting into the landscape. So you see the kind of how water has kind of been the strong element and kind of hollowed out the kind of masses of mountains in a way. So I think my message would kind of go in that direction, that you see some incredibly beautiful things that these elements have been shaping over time, and we have to allow ourselves to be inspired by the artworks of nature.
Thank you very much. We're finishing with this, and I want to thank you all for your presence, and you're all invited at 3:30 upstairs to see some students and professors' work that we are going to share with Dagur and all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.